everyone. Thank you for coming for our second panel of female founders. Cheryl, are you online by chance? Okay. Does everybody have a mic? Okay. Easy enough. Hello.
Test.
Okay. You guys probably all know me. I'm MyPhuong. I'm the co-founder. Leah back there is the other co-founder of Achilles and of Achilles Ventures and pretty soon Achilles Institute. So if you guys are interested in learning about those, come talk to us. Quickly about me, I actually have my PhD in pharmaceutical science. Lee and I met back in Gainesville at the University of Florida. We then met back up at the University of Colorado Andrews Medical Campus. So I'm actually from academia. Was there about 9 years. And we got frustrated with academia and trying to figure out how to meander all that politics to try to push our technology forward. I was working with a lot of botanical plants trying to develop a therapy to block fructose metabolism. So I'm pretty sure you guys all have heard of high fructose corn syrup. That was what I was doing, trying to see if I could come up with a therapy so that you guys can take this pill, eat your cake, and not have any of those issues. So I actually still have the know-how. I still have the plants that we screen, and I know what plants have natural inhibitory effects against fructose metabolism. If you bribe me, I might be able to tell you what that is, but I'm still trying to figure out how to move it forward. But I'm so busy doing this, I haven't had a chance. So if anyone's interested in developing my botanical drug or nutraceutical, let me know. It's out there. So that's my journey, and I hope every single person here will introduce themselves, starting with Olivia.
Yes, hello. I'm not very sciencey, but I am a tech founder. So I'm Olivia Rutman. I'm the founder CEO of Kids Care Finder. Kids Care Finder is a new kind of childcare platform that's really helping to address the childcare crisis by creating a one-stop shop for parents that also helps reduce the cost of childcare and that helps grow supply.
Hi, my name is Meg Ferrigno, and I'm not very techy. I have a very simple solution to period poverty and hormonal balance. I produce MoonPads, which are compostable organic pads and tampons that we sell on a buy one, give one basis to help eradicate period poverty.
Hey everyone, I'm also not techie. I am Jessica Zoraida, the CEO founder of Big Picture Results. We are an accounting, tax, and strategic advisory company based here in San Diego, and we have presence in New York as well. Being in a male-dominated field, I started in corporate investment banking, and I realized that women, as far as breaking through the ceiling, we typically aren't very comfortable with financials. And in order to run businesses effectively, profitably, and getting in front of VC, accessing capital, we have to look at the data. My mission is working not only as a service provider, but as an investor to get women comfortable sooner with looking at the financials, understanding how to make data-based decisions, how to build runway so that you can attract capital and be able to put yourself in a position of power sooner to pay it forward and become an investor in more women-founded, excuse me, I'm fighting this like cough that everyone and their mother is fighting, and being able to pay it forward sooner by investing in other business and communities founded by women.
Great, thanks. I'm Beth Hoffman. I'm founder and CEO of Origami Therapeutics, and I guess I would say I am pretty tech. So my background is as a PhD scientist in molecular and cell biology, and but I went into industry about 25 years ago. Been in bigger pharma and some small biotech. But basically, what we're doing, I left a very nice job at Vertex Pharmaceuticals where I was VP of Discovery Biology, worked on one of the most amazing projects I've ever had the honor to work on. These are drugs that are now marketed and have absolutely transformed the way cystic fibrosis is treated. And so I came to a point in my career and I said, gee, there's something not being done adequately for neurodegeneration. And so I left my nice job, which was sad, but I was excited to start something new where I was going to approach the problem in a different way. And so what we do at Origami Therapeutics is we've taken an innovative small molecule approach to curative medicines for neurodegeneration. And so that's what we're doing.
Hi, my name is Kate Lynch. I'm co-founder and CEO of NeoLaunch. So I'm building the lowest cost launch possible. Yes, the only technology can leapfrog SpaceX. I also have been working on novel forms of compute, implications for that, faster, better, cheaper AI, less need for data centers, and things that you might be interested in on the side for fun. I have something called the Female Investors Club. And what we do is we have a membership club and we elevate women who are female investors in technology, CPG. So we have a huge group of family offices, LPs, angels, and women looking to start their tech journey, but we also throw events. So a little shout out that we're going to have an event on March 8th, International Women's Day, all genders welcome. We have a great investor panel, family offices there, and also cash prize. Women can pitch, they can apply to pitch and all of that. So I think deeply about on earth and off-world infrastructure and also community and how we can have other types of people building and owning the future.
So I'm pretty sure there's a moment somewhere in your guys' life that went, there's this company I'm interested in starting. What was that for you guys? Olivia.
Well, I found myself in a bit of a weird situation. COVID happened. I went into it with one kid, and then coming out of it, I somehow had three. So be careful what you do when on lockdown. But yeah, so I had like three boys, 3 and under. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm on maternity leave with a third. I got to start thinking about going back to work, and they're all home. And I'm like, okay, this is not going to work out. So I start looking and they're all at kind of these different development stages. And I'm like, gosh, okay, this one needs this one needs that. So I'm hunting and hunting and hunting. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's not one place that I can go to find all these different things for my same kids. And so then I started talking to other moms too, who are having similar challenges, and realized how expensive it was. Like so many people who have 2 kids, one an older kid in preschool, but a nanny, but you can't afford both of those things, right? You got to pick one. So it was like, wow, there's really not a solution for things like nanny share and things that actually help bring down costs or help the providers not have to market and be administrators on top of caregivers. And so it's like, there needs to be one place that does all of these things and that actually helps address the root cause of the problem. And so kind of the frustration turned to the idea. And so I sort of figured like, okay, well, if no one else can do it, I'll just go ahead and do it. And that's how it got started. Easier said than done.
So MoonPads actually began as a nonprofit project. I was in Tibet. I'd lived there for many years, and I recognized the issue of period poverty there that was causing huge, painful infections for a lot of menstruators. And so we started producing these pads that were compostable because there were no disposal systems for any type of trash. So we created the product, and then it became my COVID baby because I was stuck in America during the pandemic, and I looked around on the shelves and I recognized there's white space for the product that we had produced just to give away. And so I thought, instead of like raising grant funds for this product to be given away, maybe I can sell the product, offer a non-toxic solution to American menstruators, and then use profits to give away the product where it's needed. So that's how MoonPads began.
So I'm a big believer that sometimes the universe will push you when you need that push. And for me, it was in 2008. I was about a dozen years in a corporate banking career where I didn't necessarily love the people I was working with, didn't love the work that I was doing. I had no idea what the value add was. And to kind of piggyback on a lot of the prior panel, I was unfortunately forced away from my own individuality, who I was. I'm blessed enough to not have an issue with having a strong, big mouth. Coming from the Bronx and being raised by a Cuban woman, so that's never been my problem. But it was essentially me against every other woman that wanted to move her way up into working for senior management. I got coined a lot of really nasty things, which ironically, I look back at the old me, I wore that like a badge of honor. I thought it was really cool because to be tough and hard and not necessarily liked, not being able to make good human connections on the regular. And I think because I was asking too many questions during that time, as a result of the work that I was being told what to do, I ended up being laid off. And that very afternoon, you know, I kind of like slapped myself awake, got Pinkberry, and I decided right then and there, I'm not working for anyone ever again. And I have been on my own as an entrepreneur longer than I have worked for someone. And it has never been easy, but I have finally, after about 16 or 17 years, have come back to myself where I'm authentic, I'm me. And I'm like, wow, is it me? Like, I'm now making friends a lot easier, able to make connections, building that tribe that not only sees you, but understands the value that we're creating. And that resonates deeply with a lot of the points that were raised earlier, right? Don't go to the VC or the investor that's not going to understand your thing because they don't get it. You know, figure out who your tribe is, just from, you know, your friendships to your greater network to those potential investors that are going to be thrilled to be in your corner and back you. So for me, it happened by accident, but I'm a big believer that everything happens the way it's supposed to. And I lean into that wholeheartedly now.
Great, thanks. So I've kind of given away a little bit of, my aha moment, and that was basically, we had some success in what I was doing, and I looked around and saw that there was a really big gap. And at the time, this is in end of 2014, 2015 or so, I realized that in terms of trying to treat neurodegeneration, and all of us are getting older, and, of course, we understand that there's a growing population of individuals and their families coping with the results of neurodegenerative diseases. And so I looked around and saw, well, pharma's getting out of neuroscience because they thought it was scary and risky. Well, it is if you don't do it right, but okay. And so I basically said, gee, I've been so fortunate to have had some very diverse experience working for different companies and working in different areas. And so I decided that I could see how I could take what was successful that I did at Vertex and turn that to look at neurodegeneration. And so when I left Vertex, I said, well, let me look around and see if there's something else, because maybe there's something I can get behind. And I looked around, I didn't see it, and I said, okay, well, it's really down to me. I have this, unusual and diverse experience, and I think I know what to do, so let's go. And that's what I did.
So my first word was moon. I want to go outside, point at the moon. Like at 3 years old, I had this vision for my future. I was going to the moon and I was going to solve chaos theory. I was a strange little kid. But what happened is that my obsession with who builds the future and who owns the future, and is this a world I want to participate in, right? So I was like complaining a bit about it, or thinking, like, imagining all these different things. I'm like, why am I talking about this or complaining about what's being built? Why don't I go build the future that I want to live in, right? So like, I'm not into complaining. I'm not a fighter. I'm a lover. I'm a creator, right? You take all that energy, instead of putting it into a negative place, into something positive. And so this, for me, what's really important about there's certain areas, right? Like, so who controls the high ground controls the earth. Space access is absolutely essential. It cannot be monopolistic. We need other countries in the game. Obviously, it unlocks all sorts of things. If you're thinking about, like, since we're in a biotech place, things like organoids, right? You can, or you can bioprint a heart, right? Heart replica, because in microgravity, it won't collapse. There's use cases for pharmaceuticals, for semiconductors, mining, right? We can break the Earth's limited resources paradigm. This is essential for humanity. And also thinking about, AI is obviously the future, and it's great what everyone is building, but we also need, tech has the consciousness of its creators. So we need other types of people with the skin in their game into deep tech, right? So we need more women building the future and taking ownership. Like, if you don't like the world you're in, then go build it. And my big journey is that I'm kind of an unusual person on how I run things, how I process information. And I'm not someone who's ever liked the corporate world. I can solve very complex problems in a small amount of time, but don't put me in a cubicle, right? So so I didn't know how to find, I felt like I had all this potential. I had these skills that like most people don't have. Don't ask me to go to the post office or fill out a form. Those are skills I do not have. But like the skills that most people don't have, I'm great at. That's easy, right? So I think I had to really struggle to find where I belonged, because I'm not going to be the Y Combinator gifts, like a lot of equity up, traditional VC path, like this and that. That's not me. And I'm not going to have worked in the traditional spaces. So I had to carve out and create a path that would allow me to maximize all the things I'm good at and build teams around what I lack. So I'm so fortunate every day that I have the best co-founders on the planet, such brilliant minds that I get to learn from, but it wasn't a normal trajectory. And that was a big journey in my life. How can I realize all these gifts I know inside, but that the world likes this linear process when that process kills my magic, right? So that was like finding out how to create, like my own path to honor what my gifts are.
So I think the life of a founder is difficult and it's not sexy. Lots of tears, lots of sleepless nights.
Not for me.
Oh, she's an exception. Tell us your two-part question. What has been the hardest part of being a founder? And second part is, what has surprised you as a founder? Either community that you were able to build, you found a tribe by accident that helped you, what surprised you? So what was the hardest part of being a founder and what surprised you?
Well, fundraising is obviously the hardest part, right? Let's be honest, right? I had 3 boys, 3 and under, and fundraising is just like a million times harder than that. So I think, and I have a financial background, but that did not translate. So that's definitely what I would consider the hardest part. And the stakes are so high, right? Like, you have to fundraise to keep your company going and to get it off the ground and all these things. So it's really hard in tech, especially where there's a consumer tech piece to do it without venture capital. But surprise me? I mean, I've been surprised by a lot, right? Like how hard it was to fundraise and how difficult it is when you're not a technical founder to get the tech right and to get the right technical team and all of that, and how, one bad engineer can like ruin your life for a little while. So you really have to pick wisely. So yeah, I think a lot of how hard it is very surprising. Like, when you go into it, you're like stars in your eyes, got the best idea in the world. Everyone's going to sign up. I'm going to be a millionaire in a few years, and then I'll exit, and it's fine. But then it's like, well, it doesn't really work like that. Even if you have a great idea and you do a lot of things right, the mistakes you make, and how long it really takes to get from 0 to 1 is just so significant. And so I was very humbled by all of that, and that experience. But I mean, founder community is absolutely magnificent, especially, here in San Diego. The startup community is thriving, and, sometimes we feel a little left out when we're not in biotech and med device software, but there is a tribe for it. And so finding those people, connecting with them, learning from them has been so helpful.
Agreed about the fundraising piece. I think I spent my first year trying to raise, and being a female founder, being a CPG company, and being in menstrual care, no one wanted to talk to me. And the people that did actually wanted to be on a date with me. So it was really painful. The thing that surprised me was, coming from 20 years in the nonprofit sector, I started this company really critical of for profit. And I'm recognizing how much good for profit business can do. Like tremendously more than the nonprofit sector. So that was a big surprise.
So yeah, I think along with everyone, hardest part definitely accessing capital. We've bootstrapped pretty much the whole way for our company, which has created a huge limitation on hiring good people as soon as we really needed to. Instead of myself and our COO literally wearing all the hats, there's only so much hours in a day and so much that you can do. The sooner you can get your hands on runway, the sooner you're going to be able to do more. And that's led me to a really big aha, specifically around people. Being an accounting and tax firm, we, up until I would say the last couple years, have exclusively hired for the hard skills. I need you to do the accounting and tax. And it kind of dawned on us, later than I probably wanted to, that you can teach people the technical skills, the hard skills, but I can't teach you to be a good human being, right? I can't teach you to not show up and just expect your paycheck for breathing, which unfortunately, a lot of people tend to have that mentality. So we really switched it up. And, we lean on management tools such as like a people analyzer. And from the jump, while I'm interviewing, we're going to talk about what are your values, right? Are you an integrous human being? Do you really care about adding value? Are you truthful? Are you looking to be part of something bigger that actually gives a hell of, not only making profit, but really making impact in a meaningful way? So that was probably the biggest aha for us and a game changer, because now we're hiring people that, and it coincides with this bigger aha that you can do good work that adds value, that's meaningful, while making money, while rocking with people that you enjoy their company and you actually want to hang out with them, and you're not suffering through the cubicle day in and day out wanting to hang yourself at the end of the day because you're not being your whole person. And the lessons will continue.
As they always do, right? So before I founded Origami, I considered myself a drug hunter. And I think anybody who has any idea of what that's all about is it is a team sport, and it's a big team sport. So for me, the hardest thing, honestly, was being alone, and especially getting started. A lot of what I was doing was remote. I was using CROs to try to get things going and all of that. And so one of the things that I love to do best is brainstorm. And so I like to surround myself. So one of the things that I found out over the years was that I was really good at building high performing teams. And so and part of that is about brainstorming. And when you start a company, no one's doing what you're doing, and people aren't sure whether they're exactly they should be interested in what you're doing. That's pretty lonely. And so I'd say that was harder for me than pitching. And not that I've been incredibly successful in getting investment, but I think just that piece at the beginning, especially the first few years, was the hardest. What is my aha moment? So, what was I surprised by? So I was surprised. So drug hunting, this is hard stuff. It's complicated. Everything fails. I used to tell my people, if 50% of what you're doing works, your experiments, you're in Fat City. And I thought going into this that on the business side, this would go faster. It was easier, more direct. What could be so challenging? And I'd have to say I was completely wrong. And actually, the business side, the relationship building took a lot longer than it does when you're all working on a project together and talking about it as a team. And so I'd say for me, that was the surprise. Not a bad surprise, but a surprise.
So I guess something I had to learn to enhance how I deal with is time. I love to execute incredibly quickly. Like now. I want to build the future now, right? I hear the ticking clock for, what's being built, and I know the window that I have. And the rest of the world sometimes doesn't work on Kate time. The thing is having to learn how, like, all the different things I can pull to speed things up and other people up, but also understanding that not everyone, has sort of this type of mindset. And so the things that I had struggled with before this company, with other co-founders in the past is because I love to execute this and that. I might get into working relationships with people that I'd find things out about later because I wanted to execute now, right? So slowing down, and still, like, I always have to wait, slow down, do a little more vetting. Like, I can clock a lot of things, but when I want to build something, right, I don't want to stop. I don't want to be like, wait, let's get to know each other over the next month. I'm like, no, let's go build, right? So that's a learning lesson, that I had to incorporate, is my relationship with time. And the biggest surprise actually is my co-founder one of my co-founders, I have two, in my space company. He is one of the world's top aerospace engineers. And I would have never guessed this was my work soulmate. He's like 30 people in one, only person can keep up with me. But he's my exact opposite, right? And so if somebody showed you like, this is going to be the one, I would have been like, nah, right? But I'm sure you would think the same like him about me, right? Because MIT grad, went through the military, like our personalities, yin and yang. Even when people meet us, they're like, oh, yin and yang, right? Like, you get it right off the bat. And so one of my gifts in life has been understanding potential. I think a lot of what stops great investment from happening is because we have these algorithms in our mind when we meet people. Do they check this box? Do they check this box? Are they this? Are they do this? Do they go to this school? Do they know this, right? I'd say, fuck that, right? Like, I get to work with some of the top inventors because other people don't understand how fucking special they are, right? And I understand how special they are. And then I have to figure out a new way to communicate with this very special set of needs with this brilliant person, because each person needs like special communication, and super nerds all the more so. And appreciating and unlocking that potential so that they can innovate in an effective way. So I think like my co-founder has opened my mind to like, wow, this is awesome. This is like my dream come true. Every day I'm working with him is like, after working with, like some kind of crazy, shitty people like in my youth, this is amazing. So it's for me, that's been like an aha moment. But I love, you want to look at people, at innovation with fresh eyes, right? What's the potential? I don't care about like where you went to school, like if you're neurodivergent, what your gender is, how tall you are, any of that stuff. If you're a little older, if you're a little younger, whatever, can you build cool shit, right? And are you capable? It's not just can you build cool shit, are you capable of delivering and have enough mental stability to execute, right? So that too.
So work-life balance is really hard. Work-life balance as a founder, I think, is the most impossible. What have you guys sacrificed during your journey as the founder?
I don't know if I want to say that on the mic right now. It is really hard because even though you have some more flexibility, your mind never stops. And that was a surprise to me. Like, you've really got the weight of the world on your shoulders. So even when you're present with friends and family, you're just always distracted and always going. And sometimes your kids can kind of bring you out of that and you won't really feel that. But probably the person who takes the brunt of it is your spouse, who's just like sitting there and you're just percolating all the time. And they're like, hey, you in there? So I think it's really important to try to carve out like little bits of dedicated time. Ideally for your own health and mental well-being. I don't typically do that. So this is a do as I say, not as I do. But for your spouse, for your loved ones, whether it's like, okay, even if it's once a quarter, we're going to get out of this flipping house and we're going to go have dinner. Even if it's PB&J on the beach, like whatever, we are going to leave the house. We're going to leave the children and pay attention to each other. So it's really difficult to get the mind to shut off, even when you're not physically at work, and to just feel less stress and like you don't have the weight of the world on your shoulders, and actually just be present and enjoy the moment. So that is incredibly challenging. It's still a work in progress, but I am going out to dinner with my husband tomorrow. So maybe, I'm going to try to take some advice for Valentine's Day, dropping 3 children off somewhere and leaving them. So I'm trying.
I think for me, I'm bootstrapping. So giving up money, right? Which kind of impacts a lot of things, where you live, what you use in your daily life, how you eat. Um, so yeah, a lot of sacrifice there.
Hence my PB&J on the beach comment a minute.
Yeah, with work-life balance, as a founder and bootstrapping, definitely, like we're about 12 years in, and like during the earlier years, absolutely, I wasn't living, and enjoying the things as I know I should have. And you're okay with it, right? Work-life balance doesn't necessarily have to be like a daily thing, right? There's still periods now that I grind and I'm like, all right, well, I just got to push for the next month. I'm in tax season right now. So we're continuing to grow, take on clientele, and I just have rewards along the way to kind of, keep me motivated. The thing that I don't do now that I think corporate really trained me, unfortunately, was giving up sleep, like the basic human needs that we all need. And, the pointing to the data, there's no additional increase in productivity over, I think it's like 50 or 55 hours of work per week. So why am I slogging to the computer thinking that I'm actually doing good work when I'm like dragging ass and it's not good work? So the thing that I do now that I never did in years past was I make sure I sleep 8 to 9 hours a night, most nights. I feel better. I'm not trying to choke my daughter first thing in the morning, having to take her to school. I'm happier. It's allowed me to just have better quality interactions where I'm more present. The brain still never turns off. I found that if I exhaust myself in some way with some sort of physical exercise, maybe that helps. And there's always going to be days where, okay, you don't have that work-life balance day in and day out, but you have to somehow catch yourself up along the way. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. You don't want to burn out, end up getting sick, and then you're like behind even further than you are. And give yourself grace.
Yeah, definitely. I guess, I'd say, look, the fact of the matter is I call myself a reformed perfectionist. I'm a workaholic. I recognize it. And so there's certain, well, you got to know yourself, right? And so sorts of things I make sure I do is I prioritize family, and that's my nuclear family, but also external family. I love to talk to people, so I make sure I get out to meetings and I go to groups and I network and I talk to people. And the other piece is that I make sure that I exercise and maintain that kind. And there are a lot of days I don't feel like getting in the car and going to work out at 7:40 in the morning, but I have to do it because that's what you have to stay healthy. And I can't imagine sleeping 8 or 9 hours in my life. Oh, maybe. I think if I haven't slept in a couple of days, I might. But, everybody has their own rhythm, and you figure out what that is, and you just have to pay attention to that. But as everybody's saying, the brain never really turns off, but you really have to make sure that when you're doing something else, that you're really present and paying attention to those individuals. And I think, you just that's really important. And it's that diversion. It's kind of like small little mini vacations. You're not on the beach necessarily, but you're taking that a few minutes to focus on something else. And it's that sort of little break, I think, that helps me stay sane and continue to be hope to be reformed workaholic.
Well, I don't believe that this is a sacrifice at all, and I don't believe in sacrifice. This is an honor and a privilege. We live in a country where we have a path to innovation, where we can build technologies and companies. We live in a great time on planet Earth where we can realize our dreams. Think about like thousands of years ago, you likely die of murder, right? Like the humanity, even though there's some crazy stuff going on, it's so much better than it used to be. The majority of humanity may be like managing small farms, right? Like that's what it was. Most people think like when they get, psychic telling about past lives, you were a queen, you were a king. No, you had a shitty life on a small farm. This is a great time in humanity. So I would say this is not a sacrifice. Every day that I'm alive and that I get to realize my dream and help shepherd in awesome technology, I am winning. So, as far as work-life balance, I'm wired a little differently than people, and I don't really actually believe in workaholism too much. I think I'm actually, somebody asked me to give a talk to founders who'll be in LA on the journey, and it's called I call it like the shit they don't tell you. But so I'm very into biohacking and peak performance. Obviously, she's dialed in. Sleep is the ultimate biohack. You want to like really, really be on your game and do like have amazing compute capabilities. Sleep. Stop eating crap, right? I haven't had processed food since I was a teenager. I prioritize my body and my mind. You know, it's extreme. I don't drink alcohol. Alcohol kills your brain cells. I don't partake in drugs. I like to execute at a high level. I like to study. How can I be the most effective leader? So if you have like, this is my suggestion. I'm like, I'm great at solving problems. If I have a problem in my personal life, then I just solve it like I do everything else, and whatever your process is, right? So like, how can you like execute more? You need more energy. What are the things you need to do to get more energy? Maybe a little cryotherapy, sleep. I have a practice in the morning and evening. I get quiet me time, even though I'm being loud and sassy now, right? So, like I like to do deep work in the morning before I go into all my meetings so I can have hyper focus. So I think like whatever the struggle is, you guys are obviously intelligent, wonderful, magnificent women realizing their power and their potential. You can figure it out.
And I'm late. So
Work-life balance as I'm sliding in panel. Yeah, I think that was the question, right? Work-life balance. I love your answer.
Thank you. Yes, it was.
Cheryl, everybody meet. Cheryl, please introduce yourself to the crowd.
So Cheryl Goodman, I am the co-founder of AskTuring.ai. We just raised $1 million, so pretty excited about that. Is that enough for me to be late? No, it's not. So I apologize. But yeah, no, I'm excited to be on this panel. On the pre-call, I was just so delighted to have like such a diverse set of amazing innovators and on Galentine's Day. So A, thank you. But B, I think what I heard was a little bit of the work-life balance. And I got to say, just talking to Gunnar over there about a little work-life balance, I wish I had it. I wish I was a little bit better at it. I think you're right on the sleep thing. I think you're right on everything that you said. So I'm working on it. How's that? Awareness is key, right?
All right. I'm not sure if you guys are open to sharing. What has been a mistake or a decision that you made that felt like a mistake, or what was the most detrimental to your company?
did you ask us this on our pre-call? I don't remember answering.
What would you tell you, knowing what you can know now, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh, and this is
About
where I said, don't quit
entrepreneurship.
your job so early in the process. Yeah, don't quit your job so early in the process. I think this is different for every founder, right? There's like 19-year-old founders who are living on their parents' couch and like, sure, quit your job and go for it, right? But if you have a house of 5 people in it and you live in Southern California and you have 3 kids in childcare, probably don't do that. I think that was one thing, right? It's like, I wanted to just be all in and like, oh, I'm very 2 feet in, you get out of stuff, what you put into it. So I, kind of quit my job sort of while we were still in build mode, but I thought we were like ready to go to sales mode. Well, little did I know, right? At this point, this was like first days. I had shipped everything off to India kind of unintentionally. And then like I got back a piece of garbage and could not go sell it. So yeah, like just making those decisions and making decisions too quickly, maybe not slowing down and vetting things the right way, as people said, both from a product perspective and a people perspective. It takes a long time to get the team right, and it takes a long time to get the product right. And so just being very cautious as you're going through that, making sure every dollar stretches a mile, being so hyper capital efficient, and really pushing back needing to raise till later. Those all would have been very, very helpful for me. But most of what I burned through in the beginning was my own money. So it wasn't investor money. But yeah, it takes a long time to get all those things right. So I think as much as you can kind of keep some stability in your life, like you're already going to be stressed and have the weight of the world on your shoulders. So adding some more weight on like, how am I going to pay my bills, or am I going to be able to pay for preschool? Like that's not helpful to you. So it's better to just be busy for a while and keep yourself stable, work hard while you're building and while you're getting things right and while you're failing and learning and all of that. That's probably what I would have done.
Yeah, I think my biggest mistake was trying to raise that first year. It just isn't the right move for a CPG company, because I didn't have the profits to prove the company. And then once you start getting the profits, there's no reason to take somebody else's money. You just make your own. So I didn't do the numbers right. I didn't really look at the numbers in terms of like, okay, what can I afford to invest in myself? And I just kept taking my own money and being like, oh, I'll pay that back later once I get an investor. No, I should have just been thinking of that from the start and really investing heavily in myself in the very beginning, day one, instead of a couple of years late thinking, oh, wow, I need to be putting more money in. I should have been putting it in a couple of years ago when there was more white space on the market, right? Things are catching up. So I think that was my biggest mistake. And what I would do, I would tell my younger self is invest in myself early on.
So I didn't do the numbers right early on. My biggest lesson in wearing my CFO advisor hat to our clients, you have to stock your coffers. Make sure you have more than enough capital, enough runway, and you have to do that while you're bootstrapping. Get creative, get your personal credit score nice and tight, right? Friends and family, right? And don't go to them like you're begging for money. Be like, hey, I've got a banging idea. I'm going to make this thing work, so that they see the value. And like, I love you enough to get you in when the getting's good, because you will get a return long term. And if you don't do that, my biggest mistake is if you're going for outside capital or private investors, you're going to run the risk, especially if you're not proving revenue early on and you're showing that you're profitable and that this thing is working, you're likely to give away too much too soon. And that's a huge downside in not only giving a larger proportion of your company than will be worth in the long term, but also in getting that investor, make sure it's someone that can help you some way in addition to the capital that they're going to give you. Can they educate you? Can they tap you into their network, access different customers, really help put you on so that you grow this thing sooner? The good news is, we've been able to really grow the thing and grow a certain amount of working capital on our own that I was able to buy out that investor. So, went back to being 100% owner, but it comes at an expense. So if you can be creative, besides friends and family, right? Credit cards, right? Personal loans. There's so many things that we can tap into. It's scary because you're putting your own skin in the game, but no one's going to believe in you more than you. And it's much more of a motivation, I think, to grind it out and make it happen in the short term.
I'm going to say that's very well said. But I'm going to tell two very short things. First, probably other people would have waited to sort of socialize the idea, get some buy-in, and go from there. I had a good idea of what we needed to do, and I was just going to do it. And so, perhaps that was a mistake, but as I think back on it, I would do the same thing again, because you start with a concept and it's not what everybody else is doing, and people don't believe you. And so it was really important just to get started. I think what I didn't do that I should have done better or sooner was to apply for NIH grant money. So I didn't come out of an academic lab like a lot of founders. And so I came out of, 25 plus years of pharmaceutical industry. And so, when you look at the amount of money you need and all those other things, you go, okay, So is it worth it to apply for SBIR? I got some advice. No, maybe that's not the thing to do. Just, at the beginning. And I think I probably should have done that sooner, right at the beginning, even as I just got started, probably needed some data, but that would have been useful because aside from the money, just the practice of writing down, getting the quotes, working it all out really, really was useful and important. And I still now, having learned that, use that as we're going into new indications, basically to get all my ducks in a row. And so I think that's the one thing I would have done much sooner. And that would that have made a difference? Hard to say, but because even though you're not supposed to have a lot of data, you really get a good score only when you have sufficient data. But I still think that probably would have been the mistake I made there.
Faith. So when we're thinking about creating and bringing what we're bringing in this world, worry is praying for bad things to happen. You can't be creative and problem solve if you are in fear or anger or in lack. So like when I was younger, I'm on these heavy MBAs, I'm solving such complex problems. I'm making all these people so much money. Can't tell anybody about what I'm doing. I know I'm capable more, but where do I fit? Where do I fit? And I was like stressing me out. I was so worried. Like I'm throwing my life away. I need to build a better future. Like I want to help humanity. How do I do it? Right. And there was like, when I was young, I was like keeping me up at night. Now I don't stay up at night, right, for over that stuff. But it was really stressing me out. And I think like I've had to train myself on reframing situations into like, what do I learn? It's either winning or learning, right? I don't think about mistakes and losing. What can I learn? What can I gain from this experience? In Buddhism, you say you turn your poison into medicine, obstacles into benefits. So if like I could have just like go back to my young me, oh man, it's gonna work out in incredible ways. Have faith. You're smart. You'll fucking figure it out, right? So like faith.
This is great energy right here. We should charge to have people sit here because I'm just like, powered up. But no, I would say that my younger self, building in the community. IPO, just at that time, I think was a $1 million IPO. Valuations are, of course, much bigger than 1999. That was pretty big. But I remember at those times is thinking about the inflection point that we were as a .com, thinking that I could never build a company, that I would always be that person that would nurture the process or nurture the people and the co-founder. And so I had kind of resigned that was my role. And then as time went on, and then I went on into corporate, into Qualcomm for 10 years and got to the Qualcomm Labs part, I started to see again, it was the smartphone revolution. And then that was the apps. And that's when I really went out in 2011 with my first venture. But it took too long. From 1999 to 2007 was too long. And I wish I had seized it now. And if I could give you some practical advice relative to today, because today with AI, we're really at the same place times 100, is to innovate. It's not too late. At AskTuring.ai, we are building agentic workflows for the mortgage vertical. And this is a huge $14 trillion market. Are there others? Yeah, there's others, but there's so much opportunity. So if you're an expert in something, don't think that you can't skill up or acquire skills to build and solve for what you're an expert. And now.
So the hope here is we're all building and growing our team for our company. How, as a female founder, has that affected as a management style? What are some of the complications that you face as you're building your team? Any advice?
For me, I think somebody said it earlier, is like when you're building in a hurry, you're always rushing through things. And so at first, and it is really challenging to really vet like technical people when you're not technical. So that's a very creative art. And so I didn't have a co-founder for a long time. I still technically don't, but now I finally have a really good CTO. But when you don't, and you're kind of figuring that out, it's like you're kind of desperate for somebody. And so you might be rushing through the process or putting somebody there who's not the best person long term. but you're thinking, oh, somebody's better than nobody, right? But that's not necessarily true. And so I think you really have to think about like the big decisions that could have serious impact and find a way to slow yourself down to really make sure. Like this last CTO I brought on, right? We met many, many times over a couple of months, like really vetting each other. And that was the first person who's really vetting me too. And I'm like, oh, this is good. Like he actually cares if I can do my job too. And so when you have somebody who's like that and you know how they're thinking and they care about if the company is going to be successful and all those things, like you may have to do it wrong a couple times before you get it right. Hopefully not. But I think that's really important, is finding ways to vet people even when you don't have that skill set. There's creative things you can do, right? There's coding tests. You can ask an advisor to help interview somebody for you. You can ask for feedback from other forums and things like that.
You could
And
use
so
AI too.
You
Just
could
saying.
use AI, yes. You know,
It's a great app.
ChatGPT, is this person capable, right? So you can. And so I think I didn't pull out enough of those tools and resources early on. And so, you know, I've definitely had team change, but like now after going through that, now you kind of figure out what the right formula is, and now you can apply that going forward. But those people decisions are just so critical to the success of your business that you just have to take the time to get them right.
Right. For my company, I had some real painful experiences with marketing and marketers, because when you're not a menstruator and you've never experienced it and never opened a pad, you might not be able to talk about it online. I learned the hard way, and I saw some very embarrassing ads that were posted under my company that weren't proof first. So I think when choosing my team, I really recognize the need to have people in certain positions that like really understood the problem we were solving, because otherwise it's just like really hard to talk about it. There are some people that really have that marketing magic that will try, but they just might not have the understanding of the product. So for me, that was a big learning experience for building the team.
Yeah, so I agree. People is probably the most important part of any company. And it really comes down to relationships. And it's like having a relationship with any other human being. You got to make sure that you can rock with the person, that they're going to be a mirror to you. This is the time to leave ego at the door. And I want people that are smarter than me, better at me at a variety of things that I'm not good at, which means you got to be honest with yourself that you're not good at a lot of things. You're probably really good at, right, a handful of maybe 2 or 3 things. And surrounding yourself with quality, emotionally intelligent human beings that are going to tell you what you need to be told in a way that's not going to ruffle feathers. You know, the only way we're all going to get better is being able to, take the feedback, digest it, act upon it. But in order to even get to that point, you got to make yourself available to that feedback. You can't just, interview or hire and talk about that. You actually have to show up as someone that is coachable, even if you're the leader or the manager or the owner. I've had several senior fractional, because a lot of what we do is fractional strategic advisory. I've had dudes from Harvard, a Fortune 500, big 4 accounting firms that were like older gents. And dudes cannot be told what to do or what they needed to do, to not take feedback really well. And then next thing I know, I'm dealing with drama because they're alienating themselves from like the younger people on the team, and just thought that rolling up their sleeves or listening to people that are younger than you, that's not beneath you, right? Like we can all, if we leave ego at the door, learn from each other, right? Like, thank God, I love surrounding myself with all types of people, all different age groups. Like I'm, not the best at technology, not by a long shot, and either teach me or just handle it for me. And we're all going to swim in this race a lot easier. But yeah, leaving ego at the door and being very thoughtful about not surrounding yourself with like-minded people, but people that share a true quality value system that resonates with you?
So I love to hire people and I love to build teams. And so for me, hiring and interviewing people is actually huge fun. I like people who think differently, who have different backgrounds, because that's what you're going to need. So for what I do, we might need to pivot in a moment's notice, do something differently, see a result and go, no, that's not what we need to do. We need to be able to do this. So I need to have people who are comfortable sharing their opinion, listening to other people's opinions, and who are attracted by our goals and what we're trying to accomplish, because we all need to be rowing in the same direction. So one of the things that makes drug hunting teams, and probably all sorts of teams, really successful is trust. And so you've got to hire people who fit together well, who can do the job, who are flexible enough to change or think differently and accept other sort of opinions and approaches. And so that's what I look for. So how do I do that? I usually take someone out to dinner. So I've worked with people who go, no, don't do that. That's just a waste of time and energy. But if you can't sit and talk to me, not technically, for a dinner, then this is going to be kind of hard to work together and build a team. So that's one technique I use. I often use consultants or contract workers. You kind of test people out so they see what it's like to work for you. You see what it's like to work for them. And I always have when we started out, I didn't have employees. I didn't want to hire anybody that I might have to fire in 6 months because we didn't make good enough progress. So I waited till I could see that, really had something and hire people then. But in the interim, what I did was I had a lot of consultants and people I talked to, scientific advisory board in my case, because of what I do. And I think that helped build. And I also, ask those individuals, who do you think's good? Who would you recommend? And so that's kind of how I kind of build things up. We have a very small team, but we really work together really well.
So back to the original question about like the female CEO and working with dudes, all that. I have a hacker mindset. And I think there's a lot of things we as women need to educate ourselves on if we want to succeed. Culture doesn't change overnight. Thousands of years, work culture has been built around the way men function, men communicate. Women, our brains are different, right? We have over 2,000 words more a day to say, right? Because our brains connect differently. So how can we arm ourselves for success? So something that I do, because I work with dudes all day, every day, right? Is that I studied how, what are differences. So this might sound cheesy, but John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. He has all these different books about how men prefer communication versus women. There's a great book called How Women Rise. We do all these things that are intuitive to us that fuck us in the workplace. And so like, if you just take it, what are the problems, and like what you don't know, so go find out, right? Like, so this is what I do. I read a lot of books and I try to implement, right? Because another great book is Extreme Ownership. Something is not working on my team or I'm having bad communication. That's my job, right? I'm the CEO. I can't go cry to somebody else. I got to figure it out. So like I read a lot of books. There's also like the new 1 Minute Manager, which has great tips on women. We don't like to we get sometimes awkward about like correcting somebody, right? Because I don't know, each person has their own insecurity being, a leader. Whatever childhood issues we didn't work on, haven't solved, you are going to torment your employees with. Right. So you really have to work on those emotional issues and understand what your limiting beliefs are to have that exponential mindset. So I'm reflecting a lot and I'm studying how I want to be the best CEO possible. I want to build an innovative, culture, and I have to work with a lot of men. So there's a way I might talk to a woman about something. And it's also the same with different types of people. Again, as I mentioned, and if you're dealing with a neurodivergent person, the way you explain a solution, right? It's going to be very different than someone who's, not on the spectrum, right? Because how does this person need to receive the information to be for it to be effective to them? It's not about us, right? So that's something like, how do men communicate? How do different types of people communicate? And catering, that's like you have a key for each different person you work with. And I probably will have a lot more answers next year because we're about to like grow to a number that I've never had to leave this large, as many people as is about to come on. So yeah, I might have more insight next year.
And I love that book, How Women Rise. Sally Helgeson, I believe, is the one who wrote that. She's a wonderful Harvard researcher. It's absolutely, definitely a great book. I would say I really like what you said about really, it is different. We have to accept that, the modalities of communication within the team and genders is different. And I just have to remind myself, it is maybe a childhood issue, I have to remind myself, is that most times people don't mean anything mean. Now it sounds mean. Another person might say, well, that sounded shitty, but it really like my conviction and my skin have to be equally thick, right? It's like, if I believe so deeply in what I'm doing, then I really can't get by. I don't put energy on hurt feelings or how that was interpreted. And so I've done really a good job of just setting it aside and just saying that's not really going to produce any value. And I think that's probably been the adjustment phase that I've personally been struggling with, but I think getting better, rising, as Sally would say.
We're going to open this questions up to the audience. Anyone out there have any questions for these? Yes.
I think there's a disconnect or a balance that has to be struck between companies that are trying to bootstrap and make their cash last as long as possible, and wanting to really hire from as broad a pool as talent as possible, because I do think that there are people who are not available to work for a lower salary, to equity, for cash, and that tends to disenfranchise people who are caregivers, people who are not from as much of a economically resourced background. So I'm just curious how you're all dealing with this, especially those of you who mentioned explicitly that you've been bootstrapping your companies.
I can jump in because I'll just say this is that a lot of what's happening right now in the development of AI, there's no textbook, there's no coursework. You have to build it, you have to be in it, you have to understand the tools. And I think there's a very small percentage of people that really understand what companies are going to pay for in AI, because there's a lot of crap out there. And if we're in a fortunate position that we have patented technology, and so it is, unique, and it is something that customers are paying us for. And so getting access to that type of intelligence, you can't buy it. You can't get, that's not in an MBA program. And I use that as leverage because we have paying customers, and yeah, we're still raising money, but that knowledge is only lived experience, and you can't buy it.
Something that I recommend, now this is much harder for hardware, but like if you've got a SaaS product, if there's an immediate market opportunity that you can execute on and maybe isn't your big dream, get that cash, right? Like, so you can like really leverage certain opportunities that, like, oh my gosh, I can nab this easily with very little capital. Now, as far as like, especially women too, sometimes they have more duties at home. There's a great book called Invisible Woman, which talks not only about the data gap, but all the extra work that women have outside of work. You have to be realistic with what people can offer. And sometimes it's like, so if they're like, okay, I want to be part of your company, I can offer 12 hours a week for a little equity, and I can fit that with my job and my childcare or whatever. But sometimes if we expect too much of people, right, you have to meet people where they're at and then lift them up, right? But this is the thing is like, when you're a child, right, you imagine your parents are going to be the greatest people ever, and then there's something a little bit different, right? And so then you have to like accept people for who they are, right? Like friends you might go to party with are maybe not the friends you want to like talk about the implications of quantum encryption with, right? They might be different people. So like there's a lot of cool people that might want to help you, but if you understand like, well, what's the realistic time with, and maybe what is the effective use of that 12 hours? If they're really good at this one thing, then remove. Like with my CTO, he's like 30 people in one. And I try to like keep his schedule clear of as many meetings as possible and focus him on what's really important. So there's always ways to incentivize people if you're realistic about what they can execute on and what their bandwidth is. Because I would love to take everyone's like 24/7 bandwidth, please. But everyone's not that way. So
I'll just add something to that, and so I really want to get the really good people, or as good as I can. I'm in an industry that is, when I was first hiring people, it's pretty competitive. You have to have all the bells and whistles. You gotta give the 5 weeks vacation. All of these things, and so you might not hire as many people. You might have people who are part-time for things that will work. You have consultants, but the people who are, your full-time employees, we work hard to make sure we're at on par so that we can really hire maybe not as many people, but really, really good people. And so I guess that's really my principle. I treat people in that regard the way I would want to be treated. And so that's basically my North Star on that topic.
What I hear a lot is there's a talent gap. Do you agree or disagree? And then how do you manage that? And if you're doing remote culture, how do you manage that as well?
I'm definitely a global organization, and I think that there's, that we've been struggling with this since COVID. And I would just say, I kind of go back to what I had said prior relative to those people that really want to work on great projects that, you end up, that fuels, I think great culture and great motivation. But in San Diego speaking, yeah, I think there's a real shortage. And we're also in a really big transition because of AI. There's, where there's a bottom layer is being wiped out in terms of like internships and apprenticeships. And it's not often talked about, but that whole layer is being wiped out. And yes, people are reskilling, but it's going to take time. So not only is you've lost your intern because somehow ChatGPT is supposed to replace that, which isn't, really a fair trade. But bottom line is there's a lot of transition, but I think there's more opportunity in the coming years, and just stay on it.
And I think one way to get around, like I try not to think about words like gap or I force myself into this exponential mindset. How can I really get the people I want? And so that is by having a mission, like a mission that people want to follow. And whatever your leadership skills are, so if you're a 6, you're going to have 4s and 5s that come work for you. If you want to like get the greater talent, you have to like, and this is something I'm learning on a constant day, leverage, like level up your leadership skills. So if you're an 8 or then you become a 9, the talent gap matters less because people will want to follow an exciting leader and a mission that matters. If they feel like, holy shit, I'm going to help humanity. I have to build this thing. And this person knows things I don't. And I feel inspired and I'm going to grow and learn. Then it becomes less of an issue. So we always have to, especially with AI, how can we give ourselves that extra edge? And what are the things that we can offer? And how how can we constantly level ourselves up? What skills do we need to acquire to be that great leader that people will want to join?
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I definitely agree that good people want to follow good leaders, and it comes down to, yeah, you have to pay them well. We're, being in accounting and tax, there's less and less people going into careers in this space. So there is a talent gap, unfortunately. And in addition to compensating really competitively, giving them the benefits they want, really committing to them that there's going to be this ongoing learning environment, career development, opportunity to, as we're continuing to scale and bring on more junior people, they're going to, within a year, managing their own teams. So really keeping your eye not only on making sure as a good leader that you have the people in the right seats, because if they're not performing in a certain function, it might not be, they're not a good person. It might be they're not doing the right job that's really leveraging all the skills that they're good at. So we need to do a good job of getting crystal clear on what are their technical skills, what do they like, what do they hate, minimize giving them or filling their plate with the things that they're not good at, that they hate. It might be short term if you have to grind it out, but really having this ongoing, open, consistent check-in conversation so that you're getting really good, honest back and forth, and it feels like this collaborative partnership. And and that's the true essence, I think, of a team, so that they feel like they're part of something greater and they're committed to you long term.
And train enthusiastic youngsters. There's untapped talent out there that people want to work those long hours. Like like some old, some new, right? There's probably a lot of great people out there who haven't had their first job that how to mold into excellence.
And as somebody who's bootstrapping, and who comes from the international development world, there's incredible international talent, and I utilize that. And coming from, having created a company with a very strong mission, people have taken on the mission. I've hired them. They're doing the work for the company, and then they decide to start a nonprofit to work on the period poverty piece. Like, I've actually had staff members so inspired that they take this on kind of as their life's work. So it's really like, it's not only affordable for somebody who is bootstrapping, but it's also like really finding people who it resonates with and really multiply the impact.
I would have to say that in the angle of money, right? So San Diego's a big biotech hub, but where's most of the money that goes? It's Boston, San Francisco, New York. As a result, your talent is following where the money is. I'm told a lot of money in San Diego. There's VCs here hiding somewhere, right? But they don't invest in San Diego. They go to Boston. They go to the east, right? North, east coast, west coast to do that. It's not surprising then you're going to have this talent leave San Diego.
And I actually have an interesting observation on that. Last night or Monday, there was the VC kind of state of the nation. San Diego came in 5th in terms of innovation. The highest funded company in San Diego was Viore. So it kind of skewed it because we're not really, a consumers hub, so to speak. But I mean, you're absolutely right in what you said, MyPhuong. But I would say that there's two types of investors that I see in this community. There's the one that's always on LinkedIn, that's loud, that's at every event, that has maybe $5 to give you. And then there's the others that they don't need to do that. And they're here. And I think that if you have an effective narrative and you're strategic and balanced about the way that the problems you're solving, you can get to that money. And I also think that there is a shift. This isn't me thinking, this is a fact. The vehicle of VC, we know VC is, turbulent times. Well, the mechanism of family offices is far less complex. And so if you can engage family office type funding scenarios, and a little different than angel, but there is a tremendous amount of money. And the VCs that have come down from Silicon Valley that are here, they're staying here. They're just not seeing what they need to see. So how can you get them to see that from a San Diego perspective? Speak at a national level in a regional way, not all the time on LinkedIn, not at every cocktail party tweeting your selfie with your best friend. Sometimes guilty, that's me. But, it's here.
I agree. I think there is money there. We just need to start
Just got to go
investing
find
more
it.
here.
Raise your hand if you have a lot of.
Well, again, I recommend you guys, if you can come up to LA to the investor events. I throw sometimes founders are there, sometimes it's only investors, but we really try to, and since we do bring family offices and VCs, we try to help women with introductions and to build the community. So, please come up to, you might have to, I drove down from LA to come here. You guys can drive up to go get some money,
Yeah. Okay, I think that's it.